Hello, welcome to CXOTalk. I am Michael Krigsman, and this is episode number 63. And I'm here in New York, and my deliriously wonderful co-host, Vala Afshar, is there in CXOTalk headquarters, CXOTalk Central. Vala, how are you?
Michael, great to see you remotely.
It's great to see you remotely, too. I feel strangely alien not being there in the same room with you, Vala.
Well, the delicious cookies platter is now all mine that we normally have reserved for you. So.
All right, and I'm going to get back at you for that next time. Well, so Vala, we're here today with a very interesting guest, Jeremy Burton, who is the president for products and marketing at EMC.
Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, guys. Thank you for the invite.
Well, we're very happy that you could join us today. And why don't we start with a little bit about your background and about EMC?
Yeah, I'm probably first thing that's worth mentioning. I am not a native, although California, which is where I live, I don't think anybody is really native. It seems to definitely be a mix. But originally from the UK, up in the northeast of England. And moved out to the US with a company you might have heard of called Oracle Corporation, working for a guy called Mark Benioff, who gone on to do bigger and better things. I taught him all he knows.
Mark, if you're out there, we want to hear, we can chime in too.
I actually have a video of my first launch with Mark that he sent me a couple of months ago, and I look about 12 years old, and he looks about 15, so that was pretty special. But no, I worked at Oracle for 10 years, which was a blast, and really on the product development side. And Oracle had this unique model of, I think, really taking people out of the product org and putting them in marketing roles. And I think generally, Larry liked engineering people better than he liked marketing people, so you would tend to pick people out of engineering to be marketers. So I ended up in marketing. And found out I really enjoyed it, having always been by trade really an engineer. And I think since then I've been in and out of kind of CMO or business unit, or in one instance CEO roles. So I arrived at EMC about 4 years ago to run marketing. It was after doing a CEO gig, it was a tour of duty back to the CMO role, and I had an absolute blast for 3 years. And for my troubles, I now have all of the product organization as well. So I almost feel like I'm back to my roots again, working on products and building things, and trying to galvanize 15,000 people and point them in the right direction.
So that's an unusual role to bring together. It makes sense, but how does marketing? So in effect, well, you're the president of marketing or products and marketing. Right.
If you like now, I have a CMO that works for me, Jonathan Martin. But really, the most of my time these days, for the last couple of months, has been on the product organization. But I came into EMC myself to run marketing. I was the CMO for 3 years.
Mm-hmm. And how do these two intersect?
I think it's the dream job, right? Because as I said, really by trade, I'm an engineer. I'm never happy talking about something unless I know how it works. I really feel like great messaging from tech companies comes from an innate understanding of the business and the products and the application of the technology. And I think if you understand what's going on in some level of detail on the product side, you then understand the differentiation, which then should be the basis for your message to the external market, and obviously the message to the sales team. So I love this role, being able to peer into the product organization, but at the same time, really help work with the marketing team on what we're going to emphasize and what we're going to focus. This would be my dream job if I could have described it, when I left school.
Can you talk a little bit about the size of your marketing organization and how it's structured? We have lots of marketeers that tune in and would be interested to know.
Yeah, EMC. One of the things I did, I changed it pretty dramatically when I came in. EMC grew up as like a lot of tech companies, single product company. You could have anything from EMC as long as it was a big storage array, and obviously that's going to get you to maybe $1 billion or $2 billion or $3 billion, and then what you find is you tap out in that market, high-end storage, and the product line starts to diversify. And so we've diversified over the last 6 or 7 years through a mix of organic development and acquisition, like a lot of big companies. And I think the unique model of EMC is we've tended to buy things that have been about 50, 70, $100 million, and then use our cash and our distribution channel to accelerate their growth. So we've had this business unit structure in place, and when I arrived at the company, we had 7 or 8 business units that had entirely duplicate marketing organizations.
Okay.
And we had a lot of spend, right? So probably, I don't know, let's say $500 million, rough and tough, of spend off about a $20 billion in revenue. Let's say $500 million in marketing spend, and that was people and programs. But you would never think it looking at the external marketplace, because we were going out to market with 7 or 8 different messages from 7 or 8 different business units. So what I did is I made the call to consolidate the corporate marketing functions and the field marketing functions. In front of the customer, we should be one company. So for me, field marketing, it's got to be one. Also, as well, from a brand perspective, we've got to look like one company. So corporate marketing has to be centralized, and I include in that, kind of communications as well. But then it's all too easy with business units if you take all of the marketing off them. When I ran business units, I always hated it when I had my marketing taken away from me. And it allowed me to kind of kick back and say, and disengage, right? Hey, you guys figure it out. If you screw up, I'll blame you, but don't come talk to me. Whereas I left the product marketing plus a few other functions in the business unit, and we hired really strong heads of divisional marketing. And so what happens is you've kind of got a divisional president who's got a divisional marketing person. They've predominantly got product marketing, so they're responsible for their own message and the thought process on how they go to market, pricing, those kind of things. And the leaders there are on my marketing leadership team, and we agree as a team what the key campaigns are that we're going to go out with. And we lock and load on the plan of record for the quarter, and then we go out as one team through the unified field marketing organization. So it really is a matrixed structure, which at scale I think is unavoidable. But it genuinely does feel like a team because we've got the business unit leaders. They have skin in the game. They bring their message to the table. We agree on big priorities, and we go out to market.
So in effect, then, this was an attempt to remove silos, to align the two organizations, and to simplify the message for the customer. Would that be a correct way of saying it?
Absolutely. We needed to. In the past, we'd really optimized for every business unit. We were now optimizing for EMC. Single message to the market, single face to the customer. At the same time, really empowering the business units to retain control of their message, their value proposition and differentiation, and really allow them, hey, if you get plugged into this beast we've got in the center, we can scale your message globally at the drop of a hat.
Mm-hmm. What were some of the challenges in terms of alignment of marketing that you had to overcome?
Well, every divisional president wanting to kill me. That was one of the challenges. Well, seriously, you go to the divisional presidents, and Joe Tucci, my boss at the time, has got a really interesting way of working. And I said, Joe, I want to do this reorg. How does that happen? At Oracle, Larry blesses it, and everybody gets out the way. What happens at EMC? And he said, well, look, go talk to the divisional presidents. And I said, well, Joe, they're going to hate this. And he said, well, go talk to them. And so, the conversation was like, hey, I know you're not going to love this, but how about you give me, $20 million of program dollars and 2/3 of your org? How about it? And yeah, they hated it, but at the same time, they understood the model. And I think that's a big part of the EMC culture. it's not a command and control culture. It's very much collaborative, more, I'd say almost more collegiate culture, which was not what I grew up with at all. I mean, command and control was certainly, king in my formative years, but the fact that they understood the rationale of the story behind the story was really, really important. So then when we made the call to consolidate, they didn't just get the decision, they got the rationale as well. But literally taking those folks and resources off, and by the way, at the same time, and this is what's tough about being a CMO, you can't just do that and focus on the org. At the same time, you've got to show your worth. And so I was very focused on getting some quick wins. So kind of global branding campaign, also some of the initial product launches that we did, really, go all out to show the team that we're worthy of carrying the water for you. So you've got to prove yourself, you've got to get some quick wins, and then I think you earn the right to make some changes. And look, they'll give you some time. So you've got to continue to prove yourself over the course of the next year, and then the new model beds in. And from that point, I think it's not easy. You've always got to have the transparency and accountability back to the division. So setting down metrics and QBRs is important, but it's workable.
What % of your time do you spend on the product side versus the marketing side? And isn't it gray in some cases?
Yeah, it's very gray. I mean, I would tell you probably a year ago when I was just the CMO, I was probably 80–90% of my time was marketing, but I have always tried to, even when I've done marketing roles, naturally I've been interested in the products, but I have always tried to dedicate a portion of my time to learning and really understanding the product set and getting in front of customers in the briefing center. So for me, even when I was just purely CMO, learning and understanding the products and engaging with the key folks on the product side was always a priority. And I didn't necessarily have to consciously make it a priority. I'm just naturally interested in that anyway. Now or a year ago, I got the CTO office and solutions organization, and so then my time was probably more 50-50. But the nice thing about it was that I think in marketing you get a good appreciation of the go-to-market, and so when I got the solutions organization and directionally the sales team was going towards solution selling, a lot of what I'd seen in marketing was then very relevant for what we needed to go do in solutions. And I'd say now it's maybe now the opposite. It's maybe 80% on the product, maybe 85%, and it's probably 10 or 15% on the marketing side.
When you think about the digitization of business and the explosive growth of social, can you talk a little bit about just getting the message out or creating awareness through a marketing term, converged content strategy, paid, earned, and owned? Can you talk a little bit about where you believe marketeers should spend their focus in terms of building a robust delivery vehicle of marketing?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think for all marketers, it's probably the topic du jour. I remember, I'll draw an analogy. I remember back in 98, 99, when we were seeing these, miserable diminishing responses on direct mail, and some, bright person asked the question, how many email addresses do we have? And, all the blood drained from everybody's face in the meeting as we realized that no one was looking in pigeonholes for mail anymore, and we're going to email. And you've got that same transition going on now, right? You've got the diminishing / miserable response rates coming from email. The customer is fried. They don't want to be spammed. And you know what? They are only going to read things that are relevant. And so the content has got to add value. And so I feel like you're seeing this kind of en masse shift towards quality content, which at one level is refreshing. If you don't produce quality content, nobody's going to follow you, or nobody's going to listen to what you've got to say. And so in some respects, now the marketers, we're playing defense a little bit because we've got to earn the right. We've got to produce quality content. We've got to earn the right. If we earn the right, then people will follow us. And we've got to continue to earn that right because folks can get switched off very, very quickly. And I feel one of the biggest kind of DNA shifts, I mean, particularly big organizations, EMC, we've probably got 600-700 people in marketing worldwide. The biggest challenge is getting folks to flip their mindset from what they've known for the last decade to what will be king for the next decade, because the tactics, that they really are going to be very, very different. And I'll give you one simple example. Field marketing we always looked at for years has been, well, those are the folks who execute, right? We build a program, we determine the message, we hand it packaged to the field marketing person in the country, they apply dollars to it, and they go execute it in their country, and then they come back and tell us how many leads they generated. Well, that model, I think, is going to die, because the person in France needs to engage with customers in France, so they need to deliver quality content in French. You probably need local personalities blogging in French. You can't just take a bunch of US blogs and jam them down the throats of the technicians in France. I think you need local content and local knowledge to supplement what comes from the US. So that field marketing role becomes less about booking hotel rooms, logistics, and execution, and becomes more about knowing the nuances and the trends in that local market. And so I actually think over time here we end up with a lot more content people in the field versus execution people, because the execution is free. It's through Twitter, or it's through Facebook, or it's through Hangouts, or it's relatively inexpensive to put on the execution. So you don't have as many execution dollars. You maybe have more headcount dollars, and you have more content experts. And so these existing marketing models of 55% should be programs and 45% should be headcount, and that could be BS, because it's all based on models of programs and buying advertising being expensive, and people just doing the execution.
So now you're really talking about the need to create higher quality content, which seems like it would be a more expensive proposition. So the execution or the delivery, especially if you're using social channels, goes down, but the caliber of the content creation people seems like is going higher, because you're constantly having to outdo yourself.
Right. Content is king, and if people don't, I look at marketers and skills. The guys I value incredibly are the ones who've got great knowledge, differentiation, PowerPoint skills, and great communication skills. And we need like 10 times more of them to cover the globe, because it's going to have nuances, by geo. But those folks who can articulate themselves and do it in a way that they'll build a relationship or a following online, those folks are going to be critical, because they're going to be able to influence. I mean, we know, 60% of buyers now, they've made up their mind, or they're pretty close to making up their mind before they ever talk to a sales rep. So where's that coming from? It's coming online. We have to be in that conversation online. And we're going to earn the right to be in it if we produce quality content.
But it sounds like you're having a consumer discussion, and certainly EMC, one doesn't think as being a consumer products company. You're a business-to-business company.
Well, the humbling thing being in an enterprise tech company, I mean, it used to be that the enterprise tech guys ruled the world, and there was technology that was developed in the enterprise, then became applicable to consumers, and I would tell you now that has pretty much flipped. If you look at, even from a pure technology standpoint, things like the adoption of Flash, well, I mean, the iPod really drove that. And now you're starting to see Flash, drive into the data center. So I think from a technology standpoint, consumer trends are driving, but from a marketing standpoint, I see exactly the same thing. We're all consumers at heart, and I'll give you one great example that's going on today. I mean, we sponsor the Lotus F1 team. Not so much because of the branding, mainly because of the hospitality and the big customers we can take to the race, and we get to spend a couple of days with them. But Formula One is huge from a social standpoint, and the activation that the team provide us, to drive out our brand to a bunch of technical people who love the technical side of F1, I mean, that's a big deal. And so we're almost finding, even though we probably did that sponsorship for the traditional B2B reasons, that there's a massive social opportunity to get the Lotus F1 story to the practitioners who use our products, and they love it because they like Formula One,
sure.
they love our technology, and it's relevant, you know.
Yeah, you can see, for example, through the EMC Corp Twitter account, the beautiful Instagram photos of the race, and not only it humanizes the brand, but it you feel like you're in the moment, and certainly I'm sure the entire employees of EMC are so proud to not only sponsor but be part of some of these fantastic, exciting campaigns. But the thing with the social element, whether it's B2B or B2C, how do you start to measure success of your campaigns using some of these more modern methods like social? Certainly, in our company, we rely heavily on integration of marketing automation and CRM, so we can understand the touch points and the influence of our various campaigns through the buyer's journey. But I'm interested to know, what advice do you have for marketeers who are trying to use social to bolster their brand awareness and brand promise?
Yeah, it's a great topic, because I think social, you've got the tools available to measure. We typically track engagement, and we track engagement through to then interactions on .com, which have come as a response to that engagement. And there's some pretty good tooling that we use behind the scenes on social. But more broadly, and I'll come back to social specifically in a second, and I think this is relevant to CMOs and most marketers, you have to have a pretty good understanding of the technology behind the scenes. Marketing is not the arts thing that it was 15 years ago. It is much more of a science than anyone would have you believe. And one of the first things we did 4 years ago when we started to consolidate the organizations was that we needed metrics to go back to divisional presidents to keep our job. You don't get that without great systems. And so we retooled all of the marketing systems, and yeah, it starts with spend, and it starts with tracking activities, and it starts with tracking leads. But then we started to get more into the area of kind of marketing science, marketing data science is what I call it. We created a marketing science lab. And really the goal there was to try and do better targeting, build propensity models. How could we better equip our execution arm so that they can better target their dollars, so that their dollars will go further. And that kind of marketing science lab, it's got this thing we call a data lake within it. And the social interaction is one component of the data lake. So meaning, absolute purchasing behavior is one attribute, and a very important attribute, but the social chatter, if you like, that leads up to that is also very, very important. And it may not tell you empirically whether somebody is going to go from interacting on Twitter or Facebook or wherever to a purchase, but it gives you an understanding of the kind of interaction that is required in order to create an opportunity or a deal. And so what I tell you is the short story is I think marketers have to have a dedicated analytics or data science team. You want a data set that is shared between marketing and sales, and that data set needs to not just encompass internal data sources, but also what's going on in the social sphere. And armed with that, I think organizations are going to be better able to target and better utilize their marketing dollars for execution.
Makes sense.
We have a question from Twitter from David Chu, and David is the CIO of the University of Mississippi Medical School. And he asks, if you had the opportunity to go back over the last few years, what would you have done differently?
It's a great question.
It's a hard question.
What do I would more aggressively move the team from traditional trade shows and events to online and social. I mean, I don't know anyone who kind of made this transition to the new thing and said, "Oh, we went too soon." You know, I feel like there is so much opportunity in developing online relationships, yet most marketing budgets in most big companies, they tend to go on the traditional kind of sponsorship, seminar, trade show, email campaign. I would much more aggressively push towards like an online and social outcome. And I think the second thing, you know, for a bonus point, I would much more aggressively push in the sales organization to have an entity for alignment with sales strategy. It's kind of a classic between the head of marketing and head of sales, a classic, you know, kind of point of conflict. And the reason I say that is we very recently have put someone in charge of sales transformation that is really driving the sales team towards solutions, and it is like a godsend. And it's marketing tends to be on the leading edge of that, but without someone in sales driving the action, as a company, you don't make as much forward progress. So that tighter linkage with sales, if I had my time again, I probably would have pushed for that a couple of years ago, knowing what I know now.
Sure. Well, you mentioned marketing and marketeers being more technical. You know, in my view, in the near future, you know, when you're hiring into marketing, you will look for those technical background and technical skills. But you also hear a lot about digital business transformation. And when we talk about digital, certainly marketing is a lot of that part of that conversation. Can you talk a little bit about, you know, your definition of digital business transformation and maybe some specifics in terms of how you're transforming EMC's marketing capabilities by adopting a digital mindset?
Yeah, I mean, digital covers pretty much everything. So to me, digital, new media, but I would tell you, I'll give you a couple of tangible examples. Communications. I think first and foremost, as a marketer, your job is storytelling. If you can't tell a good story about your company, you're not doing the job, in my opinion. And of course, when people told a story 100 years ago, they were open. You know, it was done in a very different way. You would write a book. This wonderful thing came along, called television, and now we've got this wonderful thing called YouTube, and high definition, and it costs almost nothing to produce video. And we created internally something called EMC TV. It is now very, very possible to hire high quality, TV production assistants to produce corporate video. And as a vehicle to tell the story, as a vehicle to engage everyone from our customers to our partners, our employees, it has been absolutely invaluable. It is full of kids out of school, and it is TV production quality. And again, from a perception standpoint, both internally and externally, the move to that medium, or aggressive move to that medium to articulate the value of EMC is, I think, made a big impact. I think secondly, the product marketer who produces a white paper for their product launch and a launch presentation and thinks they're done. In the digital world, that has to change. The product marketer has to know not just about their product, but what are the communities in which your product is being discussed. Who are your new set of key influencers? Because they're not always the guy at InfoWorld, eWeek, Information Week, the traditional tech rags. There's probably going to be 50 bloggers that are much more influential for your product than you ever thought possible. So do you know who they are? Do you follow them? Do you know what the discussion is? Again, in the digital world, the job of product marketing changes. Corporate marketing, who would produce glossy brochures on expensive paper and print them. No, the snackable content is what they've got to get into. So give me a service organization that understands what exciting snackable content is and can deliver the brand in an exciting way. To me, that's a transformation to a digital marketing operation. And then right through to field marketing, the execution there. What percentage of leads are going to be driven by Google AdWords and so on, and also in your local market, what are the nuances in terms of the communities where people hang out? I saw a shocking slide the other day which showed we do it now by country, but the popular social networks by country in Asia. And you do not see Facebook at the top of a lot of those lists or Twitter. So again, in the field, there's a transition to a digital business that really needs to happen. And it's a new one. And the final example I give you, it's a new one for EMC. But about 18 months ago, we actually put up an EMC store. Now, for a company like EMC, to be clear, maybe half of our business comes from 800 customers. So we're very concentrated at the high end, and typically folks don't come to a website and configure a $5 million system and then go buy it. But look, there's a long tail on our business as well, and 18 months ago we put up an EMC store. It really is a glorified configurator, but we've been absolutely blown away, or the sales team I think has been blown away by the volume of inbound there. And so as a nice follow-on to a lot of the snackable content and technical information we've been making available, we now can direct people to a place where they can really understand the lay of the land in terms of what it's going to take to buy one of these things. And so, again, back on what I said earlier, 60% of the work of the purchase is done before they talk to a sales rep. And I look at the job of marketers is to make that completely frictionless. And if we achieve that, we'll have made the transition to business.
Now, you're a tremendous consumer, as a marketer, you're a tremendous consumer of technology, and I'm sure technology services of various kinds. What's the relationship between that and IT, the traditional supplier of technology inside an organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. I said earlier the classic conflict was between the head of marketing and head of sales. I actually think the more classic conflict these days is between the head of marketing and the CIO. Mm-hmm. And look, being perfectly candid, most of what I've done in the last 3 years, I'd say 75% of it has been to go with SaaS applications, so I don't have to deal with IT. And the reason why, and I don't think we're different to a lot of big organizations, is that there's the IT for the last decade or so has really been working for the CFO, working on business process efficiency, implementing ERP systems, maybe putting in the CRM system, but by and large it's been about efficiency, high availability, consolidation, standardization, those kind of things, and EMC too, and so to get mind share from the IT guys from the get-go to come put in a marketing automation system, that there was no, they didn't want to do it. And so my response to that is, hey, look, I care about this. It's a business critical system. I can take my OpEx dollars and I'll apply them to technology, and we'll get this done one way or another. And you know what? To the credit, the IT guys were like, you know what? Go for it. We got to look at it from a security standpoint, right? But if it's going to help you be more agile and move faster, and you're going to put up your OpEx dollars, go for it. So we did that, and I think got some demonstrable success with it. And so when we came back around saying, and by the way, guys, we need a new self-service content management system for EMC.com, they were then like, all right, we're not going to go SaaS on that, but we get it. And then when we came back around and said, look, we need to build this data lake with the sales organization to have a common view, actually they delivered us a database as a service environment that we could provision. And then I have all of the guys that run that are actually in the marketing organization. So and this is the way I think IT should work, is they're going to provide me with a set of services. I've got the folks on my end that are there on my dollar that are going to be able to provision the database instances, do the ingest of data, and then perform the data analytics. They're doing what they're good at. I'm doing what I'm good at, and then the extent to which I want to invest, I can. So, it was tough at first. We went SaaS, but candidly, we had some very straightforward requirements.
Sure.
And I think as time's gone by, the IT org, they've been going through their transformation to IT as a service. We've been able to leverage, I mentioned database as a service, but there's a few others that we've been able to get. And then, things like the Jive community. I mean, our external communities are all based on the Jive platform. It's on-prem, but again, the IT guys, all right, I get the value. And then obviously what the interactions on the Jive community are what's fed into the data lake so we can build the propensity models.
Sure. Last week on CXO-Talk, we had Eduardo Conorado, who's the head of IT and marketing for Motorola Solutions. So, and of that scale, I think 23,000 employees. He was a unique guest. We have, I believe, Michael. I think it was our first guest we've had that had both functions, marketing and IT of that scale.
Our first guest. I have never heard of anybody who has both IT and marketing.
Another dream job, by the way. That's another dream job.
Yeah, that's funny. That's exactly what he said, because he said he loves the technology piece and he loves of course, the marketing piece. But do you see that as potentially? And of course, we hear chief data and chief digital officers and other C-suite members that may have one foot in marketing and one foot in technology, whether it's product or IT. But do you see in the future, is it an executive that links the two important functions of IT and marketing, or will just collaboration will serve the purpose?
Yeah, I'd love to see CIOs back at the executive table, right? I think what's happened in the last 15 years, the CIO used to be at the table, right? I mean, you think back to the mid-90s, right? I always look at it as kind of the golden era of application development, right? I mean, IT was a differentiator. Businesses, on a Sunday afternoon, they could build a Microsoft Access application and run it on a server under their desk, and there was all kinds of wild stuff going on. And as I said earlier, the last 10 or 15 years, I think IT has been much more like, hey, make the back office work and keep it running. Email, ERP, and so it's tend to be pushed under the CFO. I don't necessarily see IT being combined with another line of business function, but I would love to see, and I think this is going to start to happen for a number of reasons, but the CIO has to be back at the executive table. And I do believe that the out in the marketplace, there's a big shift going on as businesses look to make transition to a digital business model. I mean, you look at insurance companies; they're offering services through phones. Yeah, I had an accident 3 weeks ago. I did everything through the State Farm app. Everything. Filed the claim, got the update.
That's awesome.
Photos, everything. But look, things like Uber, I mean, it's revolutionizing transportation. If you buy a Tesla, I mean, everything about your car is on the phone, and so you find that every business is going to have to become a software company, or which means that, and where are you going to build that, right? It's got to be the IT guy. This is their chance to, I think, assist the business drive dramatic change in the enterprise. They'll be back on kind of value creation and driving the business again, which I don't think IT's been there for probably 15 years.
Wow.
So we're getting towards the end of our time, and we need to talk about social media because you're involved with social media. So you're a big-time executive, and you're on Twitter, and you advocate for social media. Tell us why you do that, and what do you say to some of your peers at other organizations who say that's not a good use of time and so forth? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, social media to me, I believe it's kind of the great equalizer. I believe I've got a brother that's 13 years younger than me. In fact, another marketing guy actually over at Glassdoor. So they those guys know all about transparency in business. And the thing is that generation coming up has got like a healthy disrespect for authority. They expect to know everything. And by the way, that's the future, right? These are the kids that are going to run DMC in future. And so how do you engage with, interact with, and empower, the people in the organization? My view is you've got to communicate in the way that they want to communicate. And by the way, it's got huge benefits for all the old people like me who didn't grow up with it, right? It is a great frictionless way of communicating. And look, I have probably 15,000 people in the organization. How do you, you can't manage 15,000 people. How do you communicate to 15,000 people? And it can't be the memo or the quarterly email, and it can't be even the webcasts, all hands meeting with PowerPoint. I think people want the regular, more immediate interactions, and the one-to-many model that I think social media brings, it's an absolute amazing tool. And what I'd say to folks is don't look at I'm going to waste time. Look at what it can do for you. Right. You can scale a message instantly. It can make you accessible where you never thought you were accessible. And to my mind, it's also going to be the way that we communicate in future. So don't fight fashion.
Sure. You in a recent blog you said, I love this. Although brands strive for perfection, it's sometimes the imperfect moments that showcase their human side on social media. And it's so spot on. In terms of the authenticity and accessibility, the fact that you can tweet to the president of products and marketing for a multi-billion-dollar corporation like EMC and have you respond. To me, that's just cool. But it speaks to the culture of EMC, and I totally agree with you. I think it is the future, and companies that ignore it are just simply not going to be around.
We all suffer, right? Again, I think probably anyone over the age of 35 or 40, right? We were all brought up in this environment, and I'm probably worse because I was brought up in England, where we're all conservative and embarrassed about the slightest thing anyway, right? But we were all taught by communication professionals to not say the wrong thing, or to stay on message, or make sure you've got the questions ahead of time. And the thing is, I just think we're in an era where people switch off to that. People know when they've been spun. There's educated buyers. There's kids in the workplace that just don't respect that. And we as kind of the more mature crowd have got to look at the way we communicate and modernize it. To me, it's modernizing the communication technique. And corporate PR departments, I'm sure. In many companies, they're scared stiff of this revolution because there are no secrets. But man, that's the world we live in. And certainly, our corporate comms organization, we've got a great set of people in there as well who are adjusting how we approach corp comm so that we can roll with it, not fight it. I think fighting this trend is going to be the death of any company. And as I said, I just encourage people, find out what it can do for you. The glass is half full, not half empty.
Great advice.
Well, this has been just a very, very quick 45 minutes.
We didn't get through half of our questions, but there were so awesome answers. So, Jeremy, we have to have you back on. You were terrific. I learned a lot.
All right. Hey, thanks for the invite. I said this is I love the hangout. It's laid back, it's relaxed, it's easy to get on. So thanks for the invite, and let me know, and I'll be sure to make the time.
Well, that would be great. And next time, maybe what we'll do is come back and we'll talk about PR and corporate communications and adapting to this changing world of social media. Mm-hmm. This has been a very interesting show, and I want everybody to know that on this coming Wednesday, right, Vala? It's Wednesday.
June 11th, Wednesday.
June 11th, Wednesday, in the afternoon, and it'll be up on this weekend on CXO-Talk site. We're doing a live CXO-Talk from Washington with the Deputy CIO of the White House and the CIO of the FCC. And as always, we'll be live, and you can send in your questions. And then on next Friday's show, we're going to be talking with the CIO of Boeing. So we have incredible guests coming up, And I'd like to really say thank you to our guest today, Jeremy Burton, who is the president of products and marketing for EMC. And of course, it's my delightful co-host, Vala Afshar.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.